Hi, this is Walter Weesey from Yellowstone Country Fly Fishing. This is my fly tying video for February 9th, 2025. And what I'm doing today is a Nick's Soft Hackle. This is from Nick Nicholas, who has passed away, but he was with Blue Ribbon Flies in West Yellowstone. This is one of my top three soft hackles on the Firehole River in Yellowstone Park. I basically only fish 3 soft hackles unless the water's really high or something and I need to get deeper. In which case I'll use something with a bead head like a leech. But normally I'm swinging soft hackles over there absent a hatch, and then even if there is a hatch, I'll usually fish a soft hackle underneath my dry fly. And this is one of them. This Nick soft hackle is kind of tan and pearl and either gray or tan wing is one of them. And then the kind of white Miller, kind of pearly white soft hackle I did a few weeks ago, maybe I think that was in November or December. That's one of them, and then a glasshead pheasant tail is the other. And in terms of subsurface flies, I'll probably catch 80% of my fish on those 3 patterns on the Firehole. And then this one's also a good one, you know, for your summer caddis hatches. It's kind of tan like a hydropsyche caddis. I'll fish it unweighted like this on the Yellowstone underneath a, normal size caddis dry sometimes. And then on the Madison River, I'll often tie it. I'll fish it like this in conjunction with another nymph under an indicator, just dead drifted. But I'll also tie this one with a bead head and use this as my kind of weight fly, and then something unweighted behind it on the lower Madison River, and I'm sure that would also work on the upper Madison. And the reason I'm doing this one is it illustrates the technique I did in my video earlier, last week now, but I think I did that Tuesday. And that video kind of blew up. It's gotten something like 3,000 views already, and I think I'm going to do that from now on, try to do a pattern or a technique video and then a pattern using that technique later in the week. But anyhow, I'm going to shut up and start tying. Alright, so my hooking device here is a size 16 short shank wet fly hook. You'll often see these marketed as all-purpose hooks, and in reality it's just a slightly short shank normal wire hook. I will sometimes also tie these on short shank dry fly hooks, but pretty seldom, because this being a pretty small fly on a normal wire hook with no extra weight, this will float underneath a size 14 elk hair caddis or something similar, so I don't need to go to that lighter wire to get it to not sink whatever it's behind. And I'll tie these also in size 14 in this color, but that's kind of uncommon. That's, more early season when the water's still pretty high. 16 is definitely the best color. Then my thread is 8/0 rusty brown, and I do like that kind of brown contrast with both the body color and kind of at the head of the fly here. And I will, you can certainly tie these in other colors. I've tied them in olive before, and I don't know that this is precisely how Blue Ribbon is tying them these days. Now, on the sample fly, I used a henback feather, but that was honestly kind of a little gray. I kind of like this more tan partridge. And this, you can see this is very long fibers on this. This is off kind of well up towards the tail of the partridge. And that's really the secret of this technique. You can tie with essentially any size feather barb, and you can also use things like flash, which you'll see later on in the fly, because I also tie some flash into the wing using the same technique. But I'm going to go ahead and strip those barbs off and trim off the fluff here. And then the way I do this is I'm going to reverse those in my fingers, and for details on this you really need to watch the pattern or the technique video I put up. But I've reversed those in my fingers, and I'm going to advance my thread ahead of my tie-in point as I tie that in. And I'm going to measure that against the hook shank and then use just thread pressure to kind of spin those barbs around the hook. There's one that just didn't want to be trapped there. And then just kind of spiral forward to the eye, hopefully having a good 360-degree rotation of that material around the hook. And I'll trim the butts of that, and as you can see behind my thread base here, I now have bare shank. And so that's where I'm going to tie in my flash. And for my flash, I'm going to use about 6 or 7 strands of pearl midge flash. And you could certainly use other colors. Like, for example, if you're trying more of an attractor, you might use a peacock body and like a rainbow flash or something like that. And you could also use, tan or root beer colored flash, because that's kind of more caddis-like. And I'm going to tie that in exactly the same way. I like leaving those butts, well beyond the hook eye here, because I'll actually trim those to length. But it's exactly the same technique. You see how I'm kind of using thread pressure to spin that material. And a lot of the time when you're doing this, you need to make more wraps to kind of get a good distribution, and I'll come in and kind of move that around and so on. And then make a few tight ones, and then I'm going to bind all of that stuff together up to the eye here, trying to keep everything more or less spun around the hook shank. And then I'll grab my butt ends, or what are actually the long ends of that flash. I'm going to pull those straight up, and that's going to create my shuck or tail. And I pulled them up like that, so now that they're on top of the hook shank, kind of all together. I'll wrap back, more or less to the bend there, and then I'm going to trim those pretty short. I just like a little tuft there, just kind of almost like a hot spot. And again, if you wanted to be more of an attractor, you could leave those long. I'd probably use like an amber color or something like that for that. And then kind of before I tie in the body here, I'm going to come in and just trim that flash just slightly longer than those feather barbs. Obviously, you don't want to trim off the feather barbs. And then my body on this fly is just kind of a tan acrylic dubbing that I've made, and this is literally just craft yarn chopped up in a blender. That's another technique video I could do. And you could use hare's ear for this. You could use any sort of dubbing you want. I wouldn't use anything really fine. I like this acrylic that I make as kind of an all-purpose dubbing, and so it works on pretty much everything except for really small dries. And I just kind of loosely dub that onto the hook here. I don't, you don't need a tight body on this fly, and that actually helps a little bit of that orange show through, that kind of rusty brown, vaguely orange thread show through to create kind of a two-tone effect. So I've dubbed that forward, essentially level, maybe a slight taper from back to front. And then kind of the last step here, I'm going to grab all those fibers and sort of sweep them up, and then sweep them back, and then bring my thread in front. And I'm not really binding them down, I'm just binding them kind of up and slightly back here. And so I've kind of created a small thread dam there, and then I'm also going to add to that thread dam by doing a couple whip finishes here. So there's one 3-turn whip finish. There's another one. And then, as usual, my super glue, or my head cement here is going to be super glue. Let's see if I can not get it in the eye of the fly this time. Alright, and there you have it. Real quick tie. That's a NYX Soft Hackle. Really effective anytime you're swinging soft hackles, but also works as a dropper underneath the dry. Spin a few of those up and tie them or try them locally. And as always, thanks for watching. And if you find this video helpful and you want to show your appreciation, you can click the Buy Me a Coffee link in the pattern description and throw me a buck or two. And if you're looking for guided trips in the Yellowstone region, get in touch at flyfishmontana.biz or 406-223-8204. And I'll see you soon.